Insights, inspiration. Radyo Katipunan, down from the hill and down to the world. Radyo Katipunan, the voice of the blue. The Jesuit Hour. Get to know the Jesuits. Discover their spirituality, their history, their ministries. The Jesuit Hour. Anything Jesuit, everything Jesuit. The Jesuit Hour.
Good morning, mga Katipuneros. Good morning, good morning. It's a Wednesday. It's June 2028. Welcome to our show, our Jesuit Hour. And of course, I'm your host, Father Nono, Alfonso, SJ. Kumusta po ang inyong umaga, mga Katipuneros? I'd like to greet, of course, our listeners, our viewers through Facebook Live, especially those based in the US and in Canada. Si Carol, one of the presidents of our alumni associations in the US of A. Yes, good morning po sa inyong lahat. Okay, let's start our show with our prayer. And as usual, we take our prayer from Father James Kubicki's A Year of Daily Offerings. For today, this is Father Kubicki's entry. On June 1, 2008, Pope Benedict XVI said, I am pleased to recall that this month is traditionally dedicated to the heart of Christ, symbol of the Christian faith, particularly dear to the people, to mystics and theologians, because it expresses in a simple and authentic way the good news of love. He continued, every one of us, when he or she needs us in silence, needs to feel not only his or her own heart, but deeper still, the beating of a trustworthy presence, perceptible with faith's senses, and yet much more real, the presence of Christ, the heart of the world. The love of Jesus keeps me, keeps the entire world in existence. As I pause and quiet myself, I try to sense Jesus' heart beating with love. With his awareness, I offer myself returning love for love. Pope Benedict said that one of the ways we express our devotion to the Sacred Heart is through the elements that form the Apostleship of Prayers program. I invite each one of you to renew in the month of June his or her own devotion to the heart of Christ. Also, using the traditional prayer of the daily offering and keeping present the intentions I have proposed for the whole church. So writes Pope Benedict. And so we pray, O Jesus, through the Immaculate Heart of Mary, I offer you all my prayers, works, joys, and sufferings of this day in union with the holy sacrifice of the Mass throughout the world. In particular, I offer them under the Pope's monthly intentions. Amen. So that's our prayer for this morning. And once again, to those who have just tuned in to our show, the Jesuit Hour, welcome. Good morning to all of you. And so we greet si Paul, Ngilog Saltarin, good morning, fathers. Si Jenny Chua, good morning po. Si Brad Kroger, good morning, mga fathers. And si Mark Daniel de Guzman, good morning. To all of you, good morning. And we hope you will enjoy our show for this morning. We have as our guest, wow, ito po, bigatin ito, ano? Bigatin talaga. Metaphorically and literally. Of course, he is the president of the prestigious Loyola School of Theology. And also, he has a new assignment, actually. He is the incoming director of the Philippine Jesuit Aid Association. Okay, and he used to be the rector also of Loyola School, Loyola House of Studies, LHS. My dear friends, please welcome the famous, Naks naman, the ever-friendly Father Joe Kilong SJ. Good morning, Father Joe.
Good morning, Father Nono, and thank you for this invitation to this radio program, Radio Katipunan.
Yeah, I have to mention, mga Katipuneros, my dear friends, I have to mention that Father Joe Kilong was our recruiter. He was the one who recruited us I hope he doesn't regret that decision. He was our boss at the Arviso house. So he supervised us, our discernment, for 1 year at the Arviso house. Because at that time, he was the vocations promoter. Yeah, no. So, Father, from vocations promotions, ikaw ngayon ay tinitingala na as LST president. Okay, Father, let's talk about LST, because here at the Jesuit Hour we feature, we showcase ministries of the Philippine province, and one of that, of course, is the Loyola School of Theology. Father, can you share with our listeners, our viewers, the mission of the Loyola School of Theology?
The Loyola School of Theology started in 1965. It was, in terms of its history, it was, it came from the merger of San Jose Seminary and Berkman College in Cebu. And basically, it is a theological center offering theological courses. In terms of its mandate, when I was installed as president in 2013, the Superior General then, Father Adolfo Nicolas, gave specific mandate about the mission of LST. So maybe from this we can see how LST provides this service to the church. As Father Nicolas said, that in terms of LST, that it should be a leading center in terms of understanding the changing context of our church and the mission today. And that as a theological school, in terms of content, that we are able to appropriate the faith content in this changing context, and that related to this appropriation of the faith content, that we have the competence, the necessary skills to be able to respond to this changing context in the church and in the world today.
So Loyola School of Theology is there to serve the church, the Philippines, the church in the Philippines and Asia.
So since 1965, it has produced already a number of bishops. I think because of now, maybe around 15 already have been made bishops from Loyola School of Theology, and of course our famous Cardinal. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagles, an alumnus of Loyola School. And of course, he was in San Jose, but still related to Loyola School of Theology. Other cardinals, Cardinal Quevedo, Cardinal Rosales, and other bishops and other theologians. Up to, I think, 1990, Loyola School of Theology was centered more for the training of Filipino students. But since then, we have become more international. And in this sense, we have widened our outreach to not only to Asia, but other parts of the world. As of now, 30% of our students are foreigners coming from 35 countries.
Wow.
Which has changed the context of Loyola School of Theology. So in a way, we have become now a leading theological center for formation in that part of the world. And because of the profile of our students, we have now widened our reach to other countries, even in Europe and in the Americas.
And there are students coming from Africa as well, correct?
Yes, Africa. Yes. I think we have around from Congo, Zimbabwe.
So it's really, Father, a vast improvement from when it began. Because when I understand when it began, when LST was starting out, the students were the Jesuits,
mainly Jesuits and San Jose.
Yes,
they were the main recipients of theological formation. But now we have really expanded.
But it was not yet open to women and ladies.
Yeah, the first, if I remember right, the first time we accepted women was in 1968. This was after the Second Vatican Council. So in a way, we're kind of also
progressed
open. Right after the Second Vatican Council, we accepted lay students and women students. So even like last year, we devoted 3 theological hours just on women theologians, for example. So to address some of the issues of women in the church and their special contribution to theological formation.
Aside from the curriculum, so there, you also have you're experimenting on various programs like itong bago yung sacred space ba yun?
Yes. Aside from the classical theological curricula in terms of dogmatic theology, sacramental theology, and biblical theology, moral pastoral theology, LST has in a way expanded its formation programs by affiliating with other centers in the campus. For example, with East Asian Pastoral Institute, we started this 2 years ago. LST now gives degrees on pastoral leadership and management. So that's one example. So with the East Asian Pastoral Institute, LST has kind of provided that network and that service also for participants in the East Asian Pastoral Institute. We also have a collaboration with the Scalabrini Migration Center on migration theology. As we know, the Philippines, we are a top sender of migrants. So, in fact, the Vatican has asked theological schools to reflect on migration. So we have offered also migration theology. And then we also have a partnership with the Emmaus Center for Psycho-Spiritual Formation. So some of their formation modules are also offered to our students. And then we also have the Center for Family Ministries. There's family modules. And also have modules from the Center for Ignition Spirituality on spiritual direction and discernment. Now that word discernment is very important now with Pope Francis. We have requests now from various groups to give sessions on discernment. And then recently, starting this semester, we're offering a certificate program on integral ecology with the Sacred Springs. It's the new institute. It's a dialogue institute on spirituality and sustainability. And also this coming semester, we're also offering a program for safeguarding of minors, the Catholic Safeguarding Institute. And of course, Jesuit Communications has been a partner with LST on promoting effective preaching, especially in the area of Ministry of the Word. So through these affiliations with other institutes in the campus and outside, in a way, LST has really kind of improved its network, its formation program in terms of this collaboration with the institutes.
Hey, Father, I hate to pose to you this question, but how would, for example, LST compare to the other theological centers in the Philippines? Like you have UST, of course, it's the Pontifical Catholic University, and then you have San Carlos Seminary, and then what they call Vianney Theological Center as well. So
in the Philippines, for many years, only the University of Santo Tomas was the pontifical and ecclesiastical faculty in the Philippines for many years. It was
what does that mean, Father, for our lay people?
The term ecclesiastical faculty or a pontifical university, it means that institution is able to confer degrees or ecclesiastical degrees approved by the church. Because there are two kinds of degrees, what we call civil degrees, which are recognized by the state, like the Department of Education or the Commission on Higher Education. And we are more familiar with that. These are the doctorates in philosophy, master's degrees, and
so
diploma
mga civil
degrees.
degrees.
Those are civil degrees that are recognized by the state. Now, there are also degrees which are recognized by the church. And these degrees are recognized by the church in view of an authority for those who have received these degrees. They have the competence and authority to teach in seminaries and Catholic-approved institutions. So in the Philippines, for many years, it was only University of Santo Tomas. But in 1999, we received our own mandate from the Vatican Congregation for Catholic Education to also grant ecclesiastical degrees. What are these degrees? Again, doctorates in sacred theology, licentiate in sacred theology, and bachelor in sacred theology. So in the Philippines, there are only two now, only UST and the Loyola School of Theology. Now, for the other seminaries to receive these ecclesiastical degrees, they have to be affiliated with others. Like for many years, since Loyola School was not able to give its own ecclesiastical degrees, we were affiliated with foreign university in Taiwan. So our degrees, when we finished from LST, came from Taiwan. But now LST is able to grant degrees. And the good news is that last year, the Vatican Congregation for Catholic Education also approved the affiliation of St. John Vianney Seminary in Cagayan de Oro. It's now affiliated with us. So now Loyola School can grant baccalaureate degrees to seminarians in Cagayan de Oro, Mindanao. It's mostly from northern Mindanao. And also our scholasticate, Jesuit scholasticate in Vietnam. So it was also approved last year. So now Loyola School of Theology can also grant baccalaureate degrees to students in Vietnam. And there are also other inquiries from other seminaries to be affiliated with us. So you asked the earlier question about how we are with UST and other seminaries. Since I became president, we have fostered collaboration
work
with them, and I think that's needed because the reduced number now of professors. We have to work now for greater collaboration, and I've received a very positive response from UST ever since I became president, and also from other seminaries.
You're the great collaborator, Father. Father, yung LST, how does it fit in the vision mission naman ng Society of Jesus, the Universal Society of Jesus? Kasi sabi mo kanina, the LST is there to serve the church. But for the Jesuits,
so I think in terms of how we would fit ourselves with the overall mission of the Society of Jesus and the Church, I think we are led to the three words of Pope Francis, which Father Nicholas, when he was Superior General, also reiterated as the particular mission for higher intellectual institutes in the society. What are these three words? Dialogue, discernment, and frontier. So in terms of dialogue, quoting Pope Francis, dialogue is not to be isolated, to build bridges. Even non-Christians, non-Catholics, and other religions, even those who don't believe in God, dialogue invites us to reach out to them. So LST has tried to respond to that. LST now is strong in terms of interreligious dialogue. So we have courses now in Buddhism, Islam, and also other secular disciplines. So we have done that. And then in terms of discernment, to read the gospel in the changing context of our times, again through theology and spirituality courses, we have also underlined that need for discernment, and also discernment in common in terms of assessing our present programs and how we can also collaborate with others. So that needs a lot of apostolic discernment. And Frontier, recently we've collaborated with bishops in the Philippines in responding to their various contexts, for example, in particular, like in Caloocan, Bishop Ambo David is vice chair of the Board of Trustees of LST. We have addressed the drug issues, violence issues in our theological hours and symposia. So, in a way, with these words, LST is able to link with the overall mission of the society, especially its recent 36th General Congregation, and also the mission of Pope Francis in terms of his
dialogue,
mission.
discernment,
and frontier. Frontier is not to be self-referential, as Pope Francis wanted, but for LST to be more in contact, more in touch with realities. As Pope Francis said, reality is more important than ideas. And now there is a temptation for theology to just, think about ideas and theories and theological formula, but with no pastoral connection.
So, Father, do you also participate in, di ba may mga meetings din, big meetings of Jesuit universities happening every year?
Yes.
You're also part of that.
Yeah, in fact, there's a big meeting now in coming meeting in Diosto. I could not attend that meeting, so I sent Father Eric Eusebio.
Sa Spain.
Diosto. And in that meeting, it will be the first time that the 7 theological centers, English-speaking theologates in the Society of the Jesuits, it will also be the first time that I will meet. And in
first
time, yes, all the 7.
Okay.
And it's interesting because I think we the 7. I think we are. Well, I think India might be bigger, but in this part of Asia Pacific, Loyola School of Theology is the biggest theological center, English-speaking. In fact, in Asia Pacific, we're the only one left because Australia closed its center. I think 4 years ago. So in this meeting, part of this meeting is to come up with again common programs, especially in the area of online courses, to be able to respond to more needs, in various parts of the world. So it's a good step, that LSC is involved in this.
Wow. So ang dami ginagawa, Father. Do you have enough personnel, your faculty, you have enough staff to carry out all of these?
Yeah, LST is blessed because as a theological faculty, ecclesiastical faculty, we have 57 faculty members. And 57 with doctorates. So it's a very, I mean, that in itself is a resource already. Yeah. And we have, I think, of the 57, around 25 are Jesuits. So almost half are still Jesuits. And we have young Jesuits who just came back from studies.
Yes.
So again,
Oliver D,
Francis Alvarez, and we have also the new Vice President now for Academic Affairs of Royal Abaris for Biblical Theology. So and also non-Jesuits are also interested to collaborate with us. In fact, last year we opened an additional program which is the certificate on pre-theology studies, which is philosophy as a preparation for theology. And we're surprised, last year we got 40 students immediately. And I think we might get the same number this year. So that program is also developing. A lot of this, you say there's so much work, but it's not really centered on the president. I think the effectivity is really to be able to orchestrate all these efforts, faculty, staff, and our students and the other institutes. Once we collaborate well and with clear goals for each of our institutes and programs, then we're able to achieve more.
What would you consider, Father, as your the serious challenges you have encountered, even difficulties as president of the school?
As I like to quote in some of my meetings, every decision costs.
So funding. It's all about funding.
So again, financial requirement to be able to really make programs viable. You have to have resources, and I was struck because I teach apostolic spirituality in Loyola School of Theology and also discernment. It struck me that Ignatius wrote 8,500 letters, but of those 6,000 of those letters were about fundraising, administration, the repairs of this place, and so on. So it was really more of administrative details. So I tell students that God saw Ignatius in the practical details.
Yeah.
He was not lost in contemplation of imaginary things, but Ignatius really saw God in the day-to-day administration. And in fact, the last 10 letters before he died, he was worried about settling debts with Collegio Romano and so on. So it's important that we have to be viable. I think other universities would agree with me that I think there is no graduate school in the world, and LS is a graduate school that can support itself. So many of the graduate schools in big universities are endowed or supported by the undergraduate programs. So as president,
so the students, the enrollment cannot support the school alone. Okay.
So that's one of the challenges. Of course, the second challenge I would identify as a president is again always to the managers, to be able to make theology responsive to the context. Now, especially now in the Philippines and in Asia and the world, how do we make theology respond to these issues? And that one requires a lot of critical thinking and creative thinking. And this is where the intellectual training is important, because, like for example, like in handling all these complex questions, we need intelligence or the intellectual skill to be able to respond to many of these issues. So, and that one is always a challenge for our students to really prepare well. Especially, for example, like very simple, like I get complaints about homilies. And then they ask, where did you study theology? Or what seminary did you come from, and so on. So, and it's a consolation when some people, lay people say, he gave a good homily. Oh, he's a graduate of LST. Also comes from San Jose Seminary. So it's a good compliment, and to sustain that.
So, the second challenge, she said, is making LST relevant, responsive to the needs out there, the needs in the world, and yung homily, for example, that's for a Catholic. You go to Mass every Sunday, and then So how do you train priests to be very good homilists? Pero Father, like itong mga kaguluhan ngayon, do you feel like LFC has to be involved more? There's a call for the church to become more involved in this in political issues.
Yes. Again, in getting involved, I follow the insight of Francis that the first is really encounter. That you encounter people where they are. Church is a field hospital, and that the challenge for us in Loyola School of Theology is not to be isolated from these issues. So how do we do this? By again incorporating all these questions and these realities in our theological hour, in our discussions, bring out students to other realities, not to be limited outside Ateneo de Manila campus, but like during the intercession, we encourage students to visit Marawi and other places in the Philippines. That is theological formation, and that helps in terms of preparing our students to face pastoral challenges later. It's it's encounter, no encounter that our students are not isolated or insulated these realities.
So you're encouraging that, Father, no?
Yeah.
So hindi ka, don't you get criticisms like, ito talaga mga Jesuitang ito?
It's
mga pakialamero.
Yeah, it's bad because again we study about this theology of the incarnation. We can talk about incarnation and the beauty of incarnation, how the second person became man. We can have a brilliant theological treatise on the incarnation, but incarnation is manifested in various ways and various realities. Incarnation is real, no? Creation is ongoing, and that is part of theology. As Pope Francis said, contact with the poor is not a theological option. No?
Wow.
It is a theology in itself because God became poor.
Wow.
So by engaging ourselves in those realities, that is already part of a theological method. No, it is not just an option.
That's beautiful. It's not ano sabi ni Pope Benedict? Pope Francis? It's not an option.
But as a it is a theological reality.
Wow.
It is a
Contact with the poor.
It is a theological reality or place of theology. It is not an option like that you can just do away with because of other options. But in itself, it is already theology.
Wow. Contact with the poor. Okay, we will be back. We'll just talk about short break, Father. Makahinga-hinga muna si Father Joe Q. And of course, when we return, more questions to the president of the Loyola School of Theology.
The Jesuit Hour. Get to know the Jesuits. Discover the spirituality, the history, their mysteries. The Jesuit Hour. Anything Jesuit, everything Jesuit. Jesuit Hour.
Call on all young male professionals. Do you wish to live an extraordinary life? Are you tired of the routine and mundane? Long for a dynamic, adventurous, and even dangerous life? Do you wish to make your life count and hope to make an impact long after you're gone? Do you wish to live a life of service to society, to country, and to dear Mother Earth? Then you are the one we are looking for. Consider the Society of Jesus. Join the Church's gallant army and turn your world upside down. Call the Jesuits Communications Promotions Team. 426-6101, local 3406. Once again, 426-6101, local 3406.
Meron? Ano nga bang meron? Paano nga bang mabuhay ng tapat sa meron? Don't you wish you can relive your philo classes? There's terror teachers, the terrible oral exams, or the even terrifying but liberating and life-changing aha moments? Lundagin mo, baby! Here's your chance. Lundagin mo, baby! Kasama ang mga pilosopong na Jovi Miroy at Ron Kalunding. Lundagin mo, baby! Leaping upward, leaping forward. Lundagin mo, baby! Leaping to greater heights, to greater wisdom, to greater magis. Lundag na, Ateneo! Looking forward to a relaxing weekend? Why not jumpstart that with our Blue Brew? Enjoy our musical mix of pop and jazz and OPM that Ateneans enjoy. Revel in the modern, the retro, or simply in the latest trend in town. Sit back, relax, and listen to your favorite sounds in and around Metro. Whatever you like, we have it in the Blue Brew. Start the weekend right every Friday, 5 to 6 in the evening. The Blue Brew. Radyo Katipunan. News, insights, inspiration. Radyo Katipunan. Down from the hill and down to the world. Radyo Katipunan is the voice of the Blue Eagle. The Jesuit Hour. Get to know the Jesuits. Discover their spirituality, their history, their ministries. The Jesuit Hour. Anything Jesuit, everything Jesuit. The Jesuit Hour.
And we're back here at the Jesuit Hour. I'm your host, Father Nono Alfonso SJ, and this morning we have our guest, the distinguished president of the Loyola School of Theology, Father Joe Kilong SJ. Okay, batiin lang natin, Father, mga korgahanga mo. Corazon, Rehencia, good morning po.
Good morning.
Roma Escaner, si Carol Tanuan is greeting you, Father. Father Joe from
Happy
Zambo.
birthday lang, Happy birthday.
Ginagawa kasi nilang, happy birthday raw, Father Carol. Ginagawa kasi nila, Father, mga offices na background po ng ating Radyo Katipunan. So it's very accessible through Facebook Live. For those who are asking, if you have missed some of our programs, uploaded po yan, naka-record na po yan sa Facebook, our videos, so you can watch them even if you have missed them. So si Nelson Limyu, Father Joe, he greets you.
Nelson, yes.
Nelson Limyu.
You.
Cebu? So he's from Cebu. He's now based in Cebu. Wow, okay. So thank you for tuning in. Okay, so Father Joe, we're talking about the challenges that you as president of the school of course deal with. So now sabi nyo yung funding, it's of course it's always there, but you're the right person. Kaya nga binigay sa iyo yung Philippine Jesuit Aid Association. And then sabi nyo nga yung how to be responsive to the changing times and so on. What about, Father? Is it a challenge yung that now the school has expanded? You have more students from outside of the Philippines coming in. Is there a new dynamics, and does that pose new challenges for the school?
We call this challenge of interculturality and internationality, and that in itself for all the students in Loyola School of Theology and also the teachers, the staff, that we have to be what we call culturally sensitive. Kasi marami na other countries, Asia, Africa, Europe, and United States, Latin America, and so on. So that in a way the challenge is to become even more open to the viewpoints of others, the cultural language of others. And like last year, we did something for the month of September. We had the season of creation.
Wow.
And we had a para-liturgy last year. And we invited various cultural groups to take part of the para-liturgy. Like, for example, the countries from Oceania, they had the water blessing. And then for countries of, we call it the chopstick countries, Vietnam, Japan, and China. They also did something. I think they were in charge of the agape or the reception afterwards. And then we also had the drum cultures. So we had the Africa, so they opened the celebration. And I think we had also the incense culture. So we had Bangladesh and India and so on. And so it was a rich experience of interculturality, cultural expressions. So for the school to be sensitive to that, or to create more programs to foster that kind of exchange. This year, we're thinking of again for the season of creation is to continue this kind of engagement, but this time naman other religions. So how would other religions honor or respect creation, for example? Like how would we know the Christian tradition from our creation story, and then but how would Islam or how would Buddhism, how would other religions express the reverence or respect toward nature. We will do that this year. So it's a challenge of creativity and sensitivity. So it needs a lot of openness, patience, and to really get out of your close circle to interact with other cultures.
What about lay people, Father? Do you have more lay students now?
Out of 400, last year we had 452. Out of 452 students, we had 80 lay students, and most of the students who are in the lay, who are enrolled in our various programs, who are lay, they are in the family ministries. So they're involved in counseling and family modules and also formation modules. But we have a few who are really into serious theological studies. But many of our lay students are involved in the pastoral programs. That in itself, you also have to again be sensitive in terms of responding to the lay needs. In fact, I think it was Archbishop Oscar Cruz that the church is 99% lay. So again,
of course,
but the thing is that we haven't really offered a full theological program on lay vocation. So I think that's another challenge for LST. With the increased participation of lay students and lay ministries, for LST to develop a full program on focusing on the lay vocation, the theological contribution. In Europe, I've encountered lay theologians who are really very good and really even directing theological institutes and even chairpersons of sacramental theology. We have a few in the Philippines, but it's not a common, that we have chairs for our alumni like Christina Torga, who did PhD here, but now she's the chair of a theological department in the U.S. So if we have more of those lay people who are really trained professional theologians, then there should be a good contribution.
Di ba si Senator Miriam Santiago?
I heard, but
pero she was interested in theology, you know, and for a lay person to be interested in theology, that's quite unique, you know. Pero that's what we want, Father, more lay people to be interested in theology.
So they can really participate in the church, because the lay people, they have their own genius. As I tell my students in apostolic spirituality, Saint Ignatius of Loyola wrote the spiritual exercises, which is the basis of our Ignatian spirituality course, as a lay person. He was a lay person when he wrote the spiritual exercises. When he reflected on his first encounters with God, he was a lay person. So I tell the lay students that Ignatian spirituality is very much a lay spirituality.
Okay. Father, isang challenge, I don't know if this is a challenge for you, but marami mga estudyante ngayon ng not just Loyola School of Theology, but even Ateneo and other schools are what call as millennials. And they're unique kinds of students, of young people, itong mga tinatawag na millennials. For example, ang sinasabi nila, Father, that the millennials are not as concerned about the truth. Diba? Post-truth ng araw. So, does that pose a problem also to LST?
Well, not only to LST, but practically for all the universities now. It's a challenge in education. We call it the postmodern culture. That many of the young now, they don't think of absolute categories, or they begin with the set beliefs and truths, but they focus on their own individual experience. They begin with that.
Masyadong personal lahat.
Yes, and that so in that perspective, what we call a common paradigm or norms. Life that would apply to all. For them, it's secondary. For them, the absolute is the self.
The self, yes.
The person.
My experience.
Yeah,
my concerns, my interests.
Yes. That will be a challenge, and in fact, I was invited to give a talk to a group of students. I will not mention the school. The invitation was to talk about about faith. I would say it was a challenge because admittedly I was aware that I didn't have the language anymore for that kind of interaction with the young. So what I did was, instead of me talking about faith, is I asked them.
That's a good strategy.
What is your how do you react to persons of the church, or how do you react about this statement? Then from there, I get their positions, and then I tell them, is this a valid position? So I think theology now, in terms of handling with the millennials, has to be dialogical.
Wow!
It's not anymore like the lecture that I'm the most knowledgeable theologian now and you just listen. I think for the millennials now, they look for persons who can listen to them.
Yes.
And then as a theologian, it is to mirror that experience and then to bring them to another level. Because in that encounter with them, I was surprised. Like, for example, like in Facebook, and you spend a lot of time in Facebook. But have you thought of why you post those things in Facebook? And then those questions open to other questions, which led to what we call discernment.
Yes.
Choices and so on. And then that led to other questions, ultimate questions about the purpose of life and so on. So it demands more creativity in terms of theological or educational training now in dealing with the young. But I think for the School of Theology, or since we are training pastors, future priests who will be dealing with these young people, I think we need, especially in the area of discernment, that we need to train our students to be more listening. And not to be judgmental.
And not to just go out there and dictate, impose on people.
But listening to encounter them where they are, to experience, to see where they are. Because I still believe, and it's for me a kind of a deep conviction that the human person is still made and structured with the orientation to encounter the divine. And I think as a theologian, it is to help the person unpack that. And I believe, because even the millennials, eventually they ask the ultimate questions.
Yes.
And I think that's where theology comes in, and philosophy comes in.
Just in the meantime, just dialogue with them. Draw out questions from them.
It's now making the rounds in social media. The encounter between Pope Francis and that boy. Who was worried whether his father would be in heaven because his father is an atheist. That particular encounter should be a model of how we do theology. Because what Pope Francis said was to allow the boy to ask the question. And even the context of how the Pope reached out to the boy was also something. It was very personal. We just whispered to my ear. I think for theologians, I think we need to be more open to that. Maybe we'll just have to ask these millennials. I think you're afraid to ask questions but open, but maybe you can just whisper. And then from there, maybe we can respond to these questions.
Okay, so Father, moving forward in terms of directions, what do you say? Where is LSC going?
In terms of moving forward, I would like, as president of LST, I always see ourselves as part of the greater communion of the church. So first, in terms of the CBCP, the Catholic Bishops Conference of the Philippines, in view of the 500th anniversary of the arrival of Christianity in 1521. So CBCP set various themes for every year, and LST joins the bishops in terms of that direction towards the 5th centenary of celebration of the arrival of Christianity in the Philippines. So, for example, like this year, the year of the clergy and religious life, again, LST devoted the symposium on the clergy and religious life. I think next year will be the youth, and then last year was the Eucharist. So, in terms of the local church, in terms of our future, we go with the local church. We don't separate ourselves and make a parallel the program in terms of the future. We will join the local church and then in terms of the we call this the general future. It's very clear. We just received the new document from the Vatican. It's called Diuritatis Gaudium, the Joy of Truth. It's the first apostolic constitution of Pope Francis, governing ecclesiastical faculty. Now that document is very important to set our directions in terms of theological faculty. What are the highlights of this document? Pope, for example, the Pope underlines again dialogue, networking, frontier research. Really improve research, and I think LST has to take that seriously. More publications, more research. So in terms of the future, we have the local church. We join the directions of the local church, and we also have the universal church in terms of the mission of the church. So in that sense, we don't have to invent our orientations or directions there, because it's there, and of course. The Jesuit directions spelled out in the 36th General Congregation in terms of reconciliation. Again, we also have that as kind of a platform or a framework to make up our future directions.
What about Asian theology? There was a lot of talk about or doing or discovering or whatever. Asian theology. Is there such a thing as an Asian theology?
When I came in as president in 2013, this was already in place. We call this the Asian Theological Program. This was the program pushed by the Jesuit Conference of Asia Pacific, especially under Mark Raper, the previous president. Again, in consultation with the other major superiors of Asia Pacific, this was a clear mandate from the conference to offer this Asian Theological Program. We call that the ATP. We have made progress in terms of the ATP, especially in the area of interreligious dialogue. Like during the intercession period, our scholastics, they spent some time in Thailand with the Buddhism and also in Indonesia with Islam. And then they go through a theological reflection of their own experience. So that's before it was limited to the Jesuits, but now we have extended that to all the students. So courses on Asian religions are now given to all the students. And then last year we did something unique. Last year LST started this program. It's called the Theology in the Asian Language Series. So last year we started with Vietnamese. So we invited a Vietnamese Jesuit, Father Duan. It was very popular. It gathered other Vietnamese students from other seminaries and other theology centers. They came to LST to attend that course on the Bible in Vietnamese. This year we will do Bahasa, Indonesia. So again, we invite the Indonesian theologians, students. This will be on the formation, priestly and religious formation. Next year, I'm in touch with another theologian in Korea. We will also offer Korean. So again, Asian Theological Program or Asian Theology, I think it has to begin with the language. Because religious experience is always mediated through culture and language. So maybe through these programs, we'd be able to promote what we call our unique way of theologizing, no? Because the Bible is there already, no? The teachers of the church are there. It's how we kind of appropriate the truth, the revelation, the teachings of the Bible in our cultural experience, and that's where creativity and richness come. No, when we are able to merge, no, the truths of the church, the teachings of the church, the Bible, with our cultural experience. In that way, then we could contribute to what we call Asian Theological Program. There are also other books. No, we're trying to encourage more Asian theologians to publish, because again, through their reflections, then we're able to engage in an intellectual exchange with Asian theologians.
Okay, so from those directions, Father, ito naman mga personal questions, di ba? For example, number one, what would you consider as your major contribution as the president of LST?
Major contribution.
Kumbaga, kasi, how many years have you been president, Father? Five years na, no?
Well, I'm ending next year.
Oh, wow.
So it's a total of 6 years,
yes,
2 terms, and in the statutes, maximum of 2 terms, so that means 6 years. What would be my contribution? It's a question. It's a good question also to kind of reflect on the past years. Well, what comes to mind immediately is really the promotion of this international context. No, during my term, we've expanded really the Asian Theological Program, and also the affiliation with other institutes, and so on. So that the enhancement of programs really came during my term. And I think the other one is, of course, the physical plant and facilities. So, and I think that's also one factor when other superiors come and other formators come, when they see our facilities, our library and our physical plant, then they are drawn to send their students here. Yes. And I think that's given, because even St. Ignatius was also particular about creating a nice physical space, again, for better formation, interaction. So, and then, of course, the communion and collaboration with the local church and other church sectors in the Philippines. We kind of strengthened that during my term.
Okay, another personal question, Father. What has given you, looking back the past years you've been president, what has given you great, profound, deep personal joy or consolation in your work as president?
Well, I do this every day. You're also very busy. You encounter many people and also other programs. But at the end of the day, I come to prayer, and I don't know. I have reached a stage in my life that we are servants. We are servants, and we do the best we can in response to the mission. And it is always every day. At the end of the day, after encountering so many people, doing meetings and doing this program, it goes back to a sense of gratitude, and because I come from a simple place, northern Cebu, and now handling all these activities, programs in the international and local, and engaging with other people. I think we go back to, again, I was vocational director for many years. It goes back to the original vocational experience, that we are called by God to be servants, and whatever mission we are given, we always respond to that call.
Amen.
And when we are faithful to that response, it gives you the greatest consolation. That gives you meaning. And then you don't even become self-referential, because with the gratitude you wonder why God called you. And then when you face God, And then you thank God, and then all the people who worked with you, or the people you encounter, the students, the staff, they become part of the gift. And then you also end up praying for them. And as a president, I do this more in terms of my spirituality. We call this intercessory prayer. And because of what's happening in the country and the world, the prayer of intercession has become very relevant.
Okay. Father, batiin lang natin si Chito Rameno and si Hazel and si Nato Kaluwag. You of course remember Nato Kaluwag. Magandang tanghali, Father Joe. Okay, last question, Father. Ito tinatanong lagi ni Father Archie Intengan, di ba, sa mga manifestations sa atin, this is your holy desire. What else do you want to do for God? Yan. It's my last question for you, Father. What is the holy desire of Father Joe Kilongkis? What else is there to do for God?
Well, again, go back to the vocational experience. The call is always linked to mission. And again, the current mission is Loyola School of Theology, and there's the added mission of PGA. So whatever mission is given to us, the holy desire is to be able to fulfill these missions with greater generosity.
Amen.
And I pray for that grace.
Okay.
And then it's up to God, and I leave it to God.
Wow.
Grace.
Father, let's end with a game. Dito sa Jesuit Hour, we end with a game. I will give you name, and then you will describe them. One word description lang. Just one word. Describe them one word. Okay, the first one is, of course, Loyola School of Theology. One word description for you.
Contemplation.
Wow, talaga. Bakit ito nag-aaral ako sa LST? Hindi yata contemplation. Okay, so what about the Jesuits in the Philippines?
Generosity.
Jesuits in the whole wide world.
Availability.
Wow. What about the Philippine Church?
Courage.
Okay, wow. And Saint Ignatius?
Surrender.
Joke Kilong.
Vocation.
Mukhang gusto mong bumalik, Father, sa magiging vocations, promotions. Okay, direct. Okay, so maraming salamat, Father John. Thank you. Yes. And I hope makabalik kayo, and we will pray for your, ang dami niyong ginagawa, Father. We will pray for your ministry, more power to you and your work. Thank you so much, Father.
Thank you, Father Nono, and to all the listeners to Radio Katipunan.
Thank you. And that is our show for this morning, my dear friends. Mga Katipunaners, until tomorrow. So, ito po si Father Nono Alfonso. Have a nice day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Atin yan. Catch the latest news about the latest happenings in and around the Ateneo. Atin yan. Be in the know and get to know persons and personalities in the Ateneo. Atin yan.